The Chernobyl nuclear power plant disaster that occurred in 1986 remains the largest nuclear catastrophe in the world. This tragic event continues to instill terror in each of us. In this video, I will tell you about the 20 most eerie and anomalous discoveries in Chernobyl. Enjoy watching. The exclusion zone has its own mystical creature known as the black thrush. Knowledge of this terrifying black bird predates the disaster itself. According to local residents, a week before the accident, some workers reported seeing a strange creature. All of them agreed that the black thrush looked like a huge bird with a wingspan of about 6 meters. The creature's torso resembles that of a human. It lacks a head, but in the chest area, 2 red eyes glow. In its appearance, the black thrush closely resembles the Mothman of American legends. Everyone who has seen this black bird from Chernobyl noted that after the encounter they began to suffer from severe headaches, and some of the witnesses soon died. The black thrush came to be considered a harbinger of disaster, as according to locals, it was first spotted by power plant workers. It's entirely possible that this is just a fabrication, but according to some people's speculation, its similarity to the creature from America, Mothman, indicates that death might come to people in such a form. The main characters in many horror movies are animated dolls. For this reason, dolls from Soviet times sometimes appear quite creepy to us. Now imagine how terrifying the abandoned toys in the deserted city of Pripyat must look. There are so many different toys in this city that it seems as if tourists specifically brought them there. There are cars, dolls, and stuffed animals. Looking at them amid post-apocalyptic landscapes gives one an unsettling feeling, to put it mildly. All these toys were left behind during the evacuation. Everything happened so quickly that frightened people hurriedly took with them only the most essential items. As a result, the city of Pripyat has become a real graveyard of forgotten toys, in whose eyes seem to be reflected all the events that took place more than 37 years ago. During the evacuation, residents of dangerous settlements left their homes forever and moved to a safe place. Almost no one returned to their homeland, as radiation levels in some settlements still exceed the norms. But among the local residents, there were some true daredevils who could not live away from home. These became known as the Chernobyl grandmothers. Many of these elderly women had survived the Holodomor and the war, and against the authorities' wishes, secretly returned to their homes. They continued to live their lives, growing vegetables, keeping livestock, and picking mushrooms. Their bravery caught the attention of American documentarian Holly Morris. Over the course of 3 years, she visited Chernobyl and made a documentary about these courageous women. Morris admitted she was struck by their love for life and their fantastic sense of humor. She believes that the Chernobyl grandmothers are truly unique people who should be forever remembered by future generations, thanks to the film. The term dark tourism appeared not so long ago, just over 20 years ago. This type of tourism involves travel to places and landmarks associated with tragedies and death. Such tourists believe that visiting these sites allows them to immerse themselves in the events of the disasters and feel the lives of the deceased. In their opinion, this is a way of paying tribute to those who have died. Among the most popular dark tourism sites are Hiroshima Peace Memorial Park, former concentration camp Auschwitz, the Cambodian Genocide Museum, and of course, Chernobyl. In 2010, Chernobyl was opened for tourist visits, but in 2011, it was closed again until 2020. Despite the dangers and penalties, stalkers continued to visit the site. Chernobyl is now open for visits, but during the tours, you can only visit specific landmarks. Unfortunately, walking around the city unaccompanied is not allowed. The cost of a trip to Chernobyl in 2020 was $100, and the number of people wanting to visit the site in the year it opened for tours exceeded 32,000. However, this is just the official statistic. Every year, thousands of illegal tourists from around the world visit the exclusion zone. Zamotia is one of the Chernobyl villages that ended up being abandoned. People once lived here, but everything changed after the disaster. Residents had to leave their homes, which they had lived in for generations. Zamotia is located 22 kilometers from the Chernobyl Nuclear Power Plant. The village had a population of 240 people. The village was founded by old believers who built a church and a women's monastery here. Its ruins still exist in the village today. In the 1980s, Zamotia was the center of a rural council. A high-performing farm brigade, a club, a library, and a school were located there. Now the settlement looks more like a forest, through the dense trees of which you can see empty, semi-ruined buildings. The houses, once so cherished by people, have become a haven for wild animals. Despite the fact that the radiation level in Zamotia has now decreased to within acceptable limits, it is likely that this village will forever be left alone with nature. In the Chernobyl forest lies one of the most contaminated artifacts kept from the time of disaster mitigation. The claw is a special mechanism that was attached to a crane. It was used by workers to collect graphite and other materials that had scattered around the power plant after the reactor exploded. The claw was used for several weeks before being removed from the crane. The radiation level of this tool was off the charts, so workers did not even know where to leave it without harming the environment and people. They then decided to hide it deep in the forest, where it remains to this day. The exact location of the artifact is known to very few people, and this secret is kept primarily because the claw is one of the most contaminated objects in the exclusion zone. The belief that there is no life in Chernobyl is mistaken. Over time, plants have grown in Pripyat, and wild animals have returned to the forest. In the most contaminated areas, new types of fungi have been discovered that have not only adapted to extreme conditions, but also help combat radiation. In 2008, American scientists arrived in the exclusion zone for research. At the epicenter of the disaster, they found that the fourth reactor was covered with unknown black fungi. Subsequent analysis revealed that these fungi contain a high amount of melanin, which is why they are black. Melanin is known for its ability to absorb ultraviolet rays, thereby protecting the organism from radiation damage. Due to the high production of this substance, the fungi have learned to literally feed on radiation, thus cleaning the surrounding environment from dangerous contamination. This fact, as well as the rapid proliferation of these fungi under radiation, greatly interested scientists. In 2016, it was proposed to take this discovery into space, where the radiation levels significantly exceed those on Earth. As part of an experiment, the Chernobyl fungi were taken to the ISS, where they were exposed to cosmic radiation. The results of the experiment showed that the Chernobyl fungi reduced radiation levels by approximately 2%. Thanks to this discovery, scientists have begun developing anti-radiation shields that will assist in future expeditions to the Moon and Mars. Pripyat has become a favorite spot for fans of post-apocalyptic themes. Perhaps only in this city can one genuinely immerse oneself in a world of solitude, sensing and seeing what our world would become after the disappearance of humanity. Abandoned parks, stores, homes, hospitals, and schools fill the city, which is engulfed in a silence that is unsettling. Among the tourists, there is a particular attraction, an abandoned room filled with gas masks. Entering this room transports you to another world, one forever destroyed by a monstrous disaster. This place is located in Middle School number 3. The room is literally filled with gas masks, and a doll sits in the center. Being there, you can't help but imagine how in the past, these walls echoed with children's laughter, teachers' stern voices, and the school bell. Then, suddenly, during the evacuation, terrified children put on gas masks, unaware of what awaited them and their families. However, the reality is that this room was simply used for storing gas masks, and tourists have gradually brought more over time. Still, this abandoned classroom remains one of the most atmospheric places in Pripyat, illustrating the horror of what happened. One of the most eerie places in Pripyat is the basement of Medical Unit Number 126. The basement is a narrow space no longer than 70 meters, with water and heating pipes running along its walls and several small rooms. Strangely enough, guides often omit mentioning this place during tours to discourage tourists from wanting to venture there. But why? What's so hidden in this place? The truth is that firefighters involved in extinguishing the blaze during the nuclear accident were brought to this hospital. Upon arrival, they were immediately undressed, and their clothing, which had become radioactive waste, was dumped in this very basement, where it remains to this day. Unfortunately, most of these rescuers died within the next 2 weeks, having received monstrous doses of radiation. Some people believe that after their death, the spirits of these firefighters return to the hospital's basement and continue to haunt it. However, the real reason this place is off-limits to tourists is the radiation levels emitted from the items. Measurements from some of these items exceed 30 millirem, which is over 1,000 times higher than the natural radiation background. The cooling pond of the Chernobyl Nuclear Power Plant is home to real giants, catfish that have grown to impressive sizes. Their length can be around 2 meters, and they can weigh more than 40 kilograms. These predatory fish feed not just on smaller fish, but sometimes even hunt small birds. It is well known that radiation has had a significant impact on the environment, including wildlife. Many animal species have mutated, leading scientists to become interested in these giant catfish as well. American biologists led by Professor Rob Ashton began studying the Chernobyl fish. They took DNA samples from local catfish, which surprisingly showed that their size was not due to mutations. As it turns out, the catfish were able to grow to these monstrous sizes for an entirely different reason. After the disaster, changes occurred in the ecosystem of the ponds. In particular, many predatory fish died. In the cooling pond, the catfish simply had no competitors, and all the food was left for them alone. According to the scientists, it is precisely this enhanced feeding regime and sedentary lifestyle that has led to the increase in size of these fish. On the small Greek island of Gavdos, there resides a group of Russian scientists who are referred to as immortals. Currently, the commune consists of 150 people, who are the only inhabitants of the island. The formation of this community began 2 years after the Chernobyl disaster. A Russian nuclear physicist received a serious dose of radiation and fell ill. He then decided to change his surroundings and moved to a rural area. There, he began practicing philosophy and esotericism and stopped experiencing symptoms of the disease. The physicist regained his strength and faith in life. After a while, the idea to create his own commune came to him, and he managed to gather other scientists around him. All these people believed that through meditation and changing their thoughts about life and death, they could become immortal. Over time, the commune grew to 30 people, and they decided to find a secluded place to live. The choice fell on the southernmost point of Greece, Gavdos Island. In 1998, they moved there permanently with their families. Many rumors circulate around the commune. It is believed that they have built laboratories on the island to develop an elixir of immortality. People from the community lead a secret and hidden lifestyle, occasionally agreeing to give interviews. In one of them, the group's leader stated that they are actually looking for a way to transition humanity to a new stage of evolution. Some consider these people to be insane or religious fanatics, but it should not be forgotten that they were once scientists, and it is quite possible that their experiments will prove to be successful. For the 25th anniversary of the tragedy, a memorial complex called Wormwood Star was opened in the center of Chernobyl. Its main attraction is the sculpture, the Trumpeting Angel, made of metal rods. The lone angel, standing on toxic soil, silently presses a trumpet to his lips, as if warning people of the most terrible disaster. The sculptor, Anatoly Gaidamaka, tried to convey how much we all care about the fate of those who died in mitigating the horrific accident. The trumpeting angel also directly references a biblical passage from the book of Revelation by St. John the Divine. In chapters 8, verses 10 and 11, it is told how a great star named Wormwood fell into the water, making it bitter, and people who drank from the water sources died. The mention of Wormwood led some people to interpret it as a prediction of the Chernobyl disaster, as the name of the city is related to a plant related to wormwood. The sculptor was likely among those who believed in this theory. Located 4 kilometers from the Chernobyl Nuclear Power Plant is a haunting place that was once the large village of Kopachi. After the disaster, local residents were evacuated, and the settlement became one of the most radioactively contaminated areas. The level of radioactivity here was off the charts, so the authorities decided to demolish the village. Pits were dug near the houses. Each structure was demolished using specialized equipment. The debris was thrown into the pit, and then it was covered with soil. For unknown reasons, the only well-preserved building in Kopachi remains Kindergarten Noirn 3. It's quite possible that it was intended to serve as some kind of headquarters or transit point. The kindergarten building was constructed in the style of pre-revolutionary Polynesian architecture. Even now, it has a unique beauty. On the porch of the kindergarten, a poster with traffic rules remains, once used to educate the children. Inside, the kindergarten has become quite eerie. Peeling walls, rotten floors, abandoned torn books, broken toys, and rusty bunk beds are all that's left. Being in the village of Kopachi is very hard, and being inside the kindergarten is simply unbearable. Every inch of this place is a reminder of the people and children who were in mortal danger during the horrific catastrophe. After the accident at the Chernobyl Nuclear Power Plant, the primary task for authorities was to minimize the consequences of the disaster. The only effective way to do this was a form of encapsulation of the destroyed reactor. On May 15, 1986, the Soviet government assigned the Ministry of Medium Machine Building, Minzradmash, to quickly begin work on covering the radioactive areas. Within 2 days, a management structure for the construction was developed, and within a week, the first ministry workers arrived in Chernobyl. Upon assessing the scale of the disaster, it became clear that all damaged structures needed to be covered either with concrete, soil, or heavy metal. However, doing so posed the problem of controlling the behavior of the reactor's active mass. 18 projects were proposed to solve the task at hand, and the project designed by scientist Vladimir Alexandrovich Kurnosov was chosen. The project was developed in just 3 months and called for the phased covering of the damaged reactor from the periphery to the center. The construction of the sarcophagus was completed in a record 206 days, involving more than 90,000 workers. During this period, 400,000 cubic meters of concrete were laid, over 7,300 tons of metal structures were assembled, and 90,000 cubic meters of soil were excavated and moved. The sarcophagus is often referred to as the 8th wonder of the world, and rightly so. The scale of the structure built in such a short time frame is astonishing. Just think about these numbers. The northern part of the protective wall consists of 4 concrete ledges, each up to 12 meters high. The external formwork of the ledges was made from metal shields, each up to 12 meters high and about 54 meters long. The weight of each unit was around 100 tons. The western part of the power unit was sealed with a concrete wall reaching a height of 45 meters and a thickness of 1 meter. To cover the central part, a metal structure consisting of 2 beams weighing more than 165 tons was intended. Near the end of the construction, 27 metal pipes were dismantled, each 36 meters long and 122 centimeters in diameter. The operational life of the sarcophagus was initially calculated to last until 2006. From 2004 to 2006, its structure was reinforced, and in 2019, the construction of a new protective covering was completed. Zombies are common characters in horror films. They are usually depicted as infected people who have mutated, losing all intellect and emotions. Pripyat has a sufficiently post-apocalyptic atmosphere, similar to settings where zombies appear in horror movies. Therefore, some people believe that mutants exist in this abandoned, deserted city. Online, one can find photos and videos claiming to be evidence of zombies in the exclusion zone. For instance, one such video shows a person running away from a crowd of humanoid mutants. He tries to shoot at them, but they continue to chase him, ultimately overwhelming him. The video was captured on a surveillance camera at night, and the creator of the footage asserts that zombies actually inhabit Pripyat. According to him, the authorities are concealing this fact. He believes the true reason the city is not recommended for tours without a guide is not radiation, but the presence of these mutants. It's indisputable that radiation causes various diseases and mutations. After the Chernobyl disaster, many wild animals became its victims. Scientifically proven deformities and changes in size have been observed. At the same time, facts have given birth to numerous legends, including ones about creatures that one would expect to see only in science fiction films. One of these is the mutant elk, which, allegedly, has been frequently encountered in the forest by stalkers. It was 1.5 times larger than a normal specimen, had an unusual muzzle, and glowing yellow eyes. Most mystical was its body, which resembled a ghost. Some stalkers attempted to shoot it, but bullets seemed to pass right through it. It's entirely possible that this story is purely fictional. However, the consequences of radiation are not 100% understood, and tales from illegal tourists might turn out to be true. In recent years, the radiation level in Chernobyl has significantly decreased. Many areas are now relatively safe, but deep within the nuclear power plant there still exists the most dangerous object known as the elephant's foot. This gigantic radioactive stalactite was formed after the reactor exploded. Its shape resembles an elephant's foot, hence its name. This deadly object was discovered in the fall of 1986 during the cleanup efforts in an underground corridor of the exploded reactor. It was immediately captured on camera. The elephant's foot presumably consisted of lead, which was actively being dropped onto the disaster site from helicopters. Due to high temperatures in the damaged reactor, it melted, forming this object. When this radioactive chunk was discovered, liquidators brought measuring instruments close to it, which showed a horrifying 14,500 Roentgens per hour. This radiation dose exceeds the lethal dose for humans by 40 times. To this day, the radiation level of this object is off the charts. Scientists believe that even 30 seconds near it would be enough to receive a lethal dose of radiation. After the evacuation of people from Pripyat, stray dogs were left on the streets of the abandoned city with high radiation levels. Many of these animals died due to the consequences of high radiation exposure and starvation. However, some of them learned to survive and reproduce. Now, around 800 dogs live in the exclusion zone. Studying the Chernobyl dogs will help science understand how long-term exposure to low-level radiation pollution affects living organisms. As part of a research project in 2017, a special organization was established, the Chernobyl Dog Research Initiative. Its participants are involved in identifying mutations and unique features of the dogs in Pripyat, as well as feeding the animals and providing them with veterinary care. Researchers are most interested in two populations that reside near the site of the accident. Their DNA was compared with other stray dogs living more than 50 kilometers away from the nuclear power plant. So far, the results of the analysis have shown only that these dogs have exclusively interbred among themselves, and their population predominantly consists of German Shepherds. Inbreeding may also lead to health issues and mutations. Therefore, it's still difficult for scientists to talk about the consequences of living in the radioactive zone, especially since no significant features in the dogs have been found. Research on the Chernobyl dogs began relatively recently. At the moment, scientists speculate that the modern generations of dogs have not inherited mutations acquired by their ancestors due to intense radiation. However, the DNA study of these dogs is still ongoing. One of the most popular tourist attractions in the exclusion zone is the city park. This recreational area is located in the center of Pripyat, between the Palace of Culture and the Policy Hotel. The attractions in the park were supposed to open on May 1st, 1986, but due to the disaster occurring just 4 days before the planned opening, people never got to experience them. Now, the place exudes a unique atmosphere. The abandoned Ferris wheel, rusting bumper cars, and overgrown swing boats serve as a reminder of how our lives can change in an instant. The city park is one of the most contaminated places in Pripyat. This is because, during the initial disaster cleanup, this location was used as a landing strip. The highest levels of radiation are found under the seats of the Ferris wheel, in the bumper cars, and on patches heavily covered with moss. The area continues to be dangerous to visit, but that doesn't deter tourists who wish to experience the atmosphere of emptiness and solitude here. One of the most unusual attractions in Chernobyl is the DUGA radar station. It attracts a high level of interest from tourists due to its astonishingly futuristic appearance. Before the disaster, this facility was classified, so people could only speculate about the purpose of this strange structure. Now, however, we can easily learn about the true purpose of the DUGA. The primary function of the radar station was to track intercontinental ballistic missile launches at distances ranging from 900 to 3,000 kilometers in the polar region. The station managed to detect missiles based on their launch flashes in the ionosphere. Thanks to this station, more than 100 launches were successfully tracked. The DUGA system consisted of transmitting, receiving, and circular antennas. The height of the antennas reached up to 140 meters. A total of 3 such systems were built, but only one remains today, towering over the exclusion zone. In Pripyat, on the walls of various buildings, both inside and outside, you can find intriguing graffiti done in black. At first glance, they may seem like the actual shadows of the town's inhabitants. This effect is created because each figure is depicted in motion. The graffiti was created by various artists from Russia, Belarus, and Germany. The authors of these drawings illegally entered the territory of Pripyat to recreate life in the deserted city in this manner. The images indeed look as if they are alive, and each one is unique. For example, inside one building, the shadow of a girl with bows reaches for a light switch, while inside another, several shadows of people are joyfully dancing. Thanks to this amazing art, the residents of the city were symbolically able to stay in their homes forever, as if the disaster had never happened. That's all for me. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to rate it, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell. Your activity is the best reward for me. Thank you for your attention. See you soon. Goodbye.